In this video, we'll talk about how to add metadata in labels to support Semaphore's governance and provenance features. Governance in Semaphore refers to the policies, controls, permissions, and oversight that ensure knowledge models and metadata are accurate, trusted, and compliant. On the other hand, provenance in Semaphore refers to metadata fields that describe the origin and history of a label to give it context within a knowledge model. We will use the space missions classification model preloaded in Semaphore as our example, and we will add metadata in a label tagged to the concept Space Shuttle Atlantis. Metadata refers to data that provides information about other data. Metadata details the features, structure, and content of a dataset to aid users and systems in managing data. Metadata adds context such as data source, status, or domain, so your concepts aren't just names, they're governed and traceable. For example, tagging the metadata official Russian birth name in English spelling to the label Alexander Alexandrovich Volkov provides origin data to his name. Labels also make models multilingual and classification ready. Without them, your rule bases can't match real-world content accurately. For example, the metadata official birth name in Russian spelling when tagged to this label, Alexander Alexandrovich Volkov, adds a data language layer. Think of metadata on labels as the glue between your taxonomy and the business processes that depend on it. In order to organize metadata in labels, Semaphore uses the Simple Knowledge Organization System extension for labels. SKOS-XL treats text labels as unique identifiable things or nodes with URIs or uniform resource identifiers, rather than just simple text strings tagged to a concept. URIs prevent conflicts from similarly named metadata. A URI is a unique sequence of characters that identifies a content resource in Semaphore. A Semaphore label can be tagged with almost any metadata that you choose for your model. You can create metadata types with various domains. In our example, to use metadata on a label, you should set the domain to label. And you need to set a range to identify the data type that the metadata will be associated with. Semaphore supports a variety of common data types. You can attach more than one metadata field for each label. Let's begin creating a metadata type. We need to identify the domain, which will be label. We are naming this metadata, NASA reference data, as this speaks to an attribute of the label in our example called OV104. Next, we need to identify the range, and in this case, we will use the string option to allow the entry of numbers, symbols, letters, and spaces. The string's content will be orbiter vehicle designation, which corresponds to NASA's reference data of OV104 as specified in this space mission model. Let's create this metadata type in Semaphore. We will associate this later with a label. In Semaphore, we will create a metadata with a label domain. We will then apply this metadata type to an existing label in our space missions model. To do this, select the space missions model name, which is located in a table under the Knowledge Model Management. This admin menu appears. Select Master and select Structure. The Resource Metadata menu appears. In this menu, select the green plus icon. Our next step is to create a new metadata type. Please note that we are creating a container to house possible attributes related to either a preferred or alternative label. For clarity, this metadata is not intended to be an instance of a concept or a label, but to be a curated description. Under the domain field, we will select label, as this metadata is used to describe either a preferred or alternative label. Under the metadata name, type in NASA reference data. Let's choose string for the range type so we can enter text content that enriches the metadata NASA reference data. There are other options which include integer or decimals, which are useful for computation, and date, to name a few. Select Save to create the metadata type. Let's inspect the NASA reference data that we have just created. Within this metadata container, a unique resource identifier, or URI, is automatically assigned. You can verify in the right side panel that this metadata is under a label domain and has the name NASA reference data and uses string data. Choosing the string option automatically creates a comment box for text input. The next step is to associate your metadata to a label in your Semaphore model. Let's attach our newly created metadata called NASA reference data to a label. To begin, open the Tree View panel. Open Manned Space Missions and Space Shuttle and select Space Shuttle Atlantis. We picked the alternative label called OV104. This alternative label OV104 is tagged to the concept Space Shuttle Atlantis. Select the paper icon to the left of the OV designation and OV104 label. This will open the menu for the label metadata. Next, we will choose the metadata field. Let's select the pre-made metadata called NASA reference data that we just created a moment ago. Select the Add button. The text box for the NASA reference data metadata type appears. In this text box, we can add the value for this metadata type. We will type in orbiter vehicle designation. Afterwards, select Save. You have now successfully created the metadata NASA reference data and attached it to the OV104 alternative label for the concept Space Shuttle Atlantis. In summary, metadata in labels enable accurate classification, richer search experiences, improved governance, and provenance. Thank you for viewing this presentation. For additional resources, check the description below.